Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. Inflation likely flat in July, with lower rice prices offsetting gains in other essentials, says the Bangko Sentral. The Philippines targets 13 trade deals by 2028 as the Marcos administration pushes for stronger global ties. And also later in the program, we'll hear from Dino Aquino, the Vice President and Head of Fixed Income at Security Bank, on why the government is moving fast to issue a 5-year retail treasury bond and what it signals for investors. Let's take a look at how global markets performed overnight. U.S. stocks ended lower Thursday. Early gains fizzled amid a flood of corporate earnings and economic signals. Investors awaited results from tech giants Amazon and Apple, set to report after the bell. Microsoft jumped over 3% on strong earnings, briefly crossing the $4 trillion market cap, joining NVIDIA in that elite club. Meta surged 11% to a record close above $773, boosted by AI-driven revenue and an upbeat forecast. Meanwhile, Commerce Department data showed inflation ticked up in June, partly due to new tariffs, while jobless claims pointed to a steady labor market.
And then let's not forget jobs on Friday. Big number. ADP jobs, by the way, just came out this week. And we're expecting 74,000. It came out at 104. That was a big surprise to the upside. That is an interesting number. Let's see how that plays out on the jobs number on Friday. So what's moving markets? The culmination of all this information coming together and how people are parsing it out and how investors are parsing it out to see what they're going to get into or not.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.7%. The S&P 500 slipped 0.4%, and the Nasdaq was flat with a slight downward bias. Over in Europe, markets closed in the red. London's FTSE down with a slight lower bias. The Germany's DAX down by 0.8%, and France's CAC 40 down by 1.1%. Here at home, lower rice prices helped keep inflation steady in July, with the central bank seeing little change from June levels. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas expects monthly inflation to settle between 0.5 to 1.3%. The BSP says cheaper rice is offsetting price gains in other food items, utilities, and the impact of a weaker peso. John Paulo Rivera, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, says Filipinos remain cautious spenders, still vulnerable to price shocks despite a slight improvement in consumer sentiment. The Philippines is stepping up its global trade game, targeting 13 free trade agreements before the end of President Marcos's term. It's part of a broader strategy to boost exports, tap new markets, and reduce reliance on traditional partners like the United States and China. Speaking at the 2025 mid-year economic briefing hosted by the British Chamber of Commerce, Trade Undersecretary Alan Gepti said that talks are underway with the European Union and Chile, which could become the country's first Latin American trade partner. He also confirmed that preferential trade negotiations with India are about to begin, while a free trade agreement with Canada is under exploration. Gepti said that the push for new trade deals is part of a more assertive, diversified strategy aimed at strengthening economic resilience, attracting investments, and keeping the Philippines competitive in a fragmenting global economy. Trade talks between the Philippines and the United States remain ongoing as a new 19% reciprocal tariff on Philippine exports to America takes effect today. The Philippine government says that the talks go beyond market access and cover broader rules on non-tariff barriers that affect trade flows and compliance standards. Trade Undersecretary Alan Gepti, the country's chief negotiator, says discussions are still underway to finalize terms of the trade agreement. Meanwhile, Trade Secretary Cristina Roque confirmed that the Philippines will not be offering additional concessions, which she says is why the U.S. didn't move to lower the tariff. Now, the Philippines is no longer on track to reach high-income country status by 2040. A sharp slowdown in growth and new global headwinds are now forcing a reality check. Sujin Kim reports.
The Philippines is now unlikely to attain high-income country status by 2040. This was the candid admission of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, during its midterm review of the Philippine Development Plan.
Because remember in 2020 the economy contracted by almost by 9%. That's quite a big deal, a lot of contraction, and what that meant is we lost 3 years of growth momentum. So that 2040 is at the current growth rate is not likely going to be feasible anymore.
According to DepDev, if current trends hold, the Philippines risks falling further behind its faster-growing neighbors like Vietnam and Indonesia.
I'm not, happy with 6%, because with 6% you'll be overtaken by. We need to grow faster, but to grow faster we need to solve many of those constraints that we face, structural, technical, institutional, all that stuff.
DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan stressed that growth must no longer be driven solely by consumption. The economy must fire on all cylinders through investments and exports.
Clearly that you cannot depend entirely on consumption spending as your driver for growth. A diversified economy, so that we don't just depend on consumption as the engine for that growth. If the global economy will recover from its doldrum, and then we should be able to benefit from that now. The investment part, there's a lot of potential opportunity there.
The government expects exports to perform better this year, following a strong jump in June, ahead of the U.S. tariff increase that takes effect this August.
Now, we expect, I think that we expect the trade deficit to improve a bit with a slightly better performance of exports than in 2025 than in 2024, and also in relation to imports.
Still, DepDev confirmed that the 19% tariff imposed by the United States will weigh on the country's economic performance. The impact, a projected 0.4 percentage point drop in GDP growth, almost identical to initial estimates from the earlier 20% tariff level. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippine Competition Commission, or PCC, clears Ayala Corporation's 18.4 billion peso sale of 50% of AC Ventures Holding Corporation to Japan's Mitsubishi Corporation in a move that underscores growing foreign interest in the Philippines' digital finance space. AC Ventures is Ayala's venture capital arm and holds a 13% stake in Globe Fintech Innovations, the parent firm of GCash operator GExchange and microlender Fuse Lending. The PCC says the deal won't hurt competition in QR code-based person-to-merchant payments, while Mitsubishi indirectly owns Lawson Philippines. The commission finds its digital payments footprint remains limited and that the transaction would not substantially lessen competition. On another front, the Philippines climbs in a global mining ranking, boosting confidence in the sector's investment outlook. The Chamber of Mines of the Philippines is welcoming the country's rise in the Fraser Institute's 2024 annual mining survey. The Philippines jumped 16th out of 82 jurisdictions in investment attractiveness and 25th in policy perception. It also places 9th out of 58 in best practices, mineral potential, highlighting the country's untapped resource base. The chamber says that the upgraded rankings reflect reforms under the Marcos administration, including efforts to improve policy stability, regulatory clarity, and the ease of doing business for responsible mining. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. The Philippine government is rolling out a 5-year retail treasury bond in a tactical move to lock in funding before interest rates start falling again. RTB 31 comes with a built-in exchange option allowing holders of near-maturing bonds to roll over into this new 2030 issue. The offering has a minimum size of 30 billion pesos, but could grow substantially as investors seek stability amid softening inflation, a weaker peso to the dollar, and an expected BSP rate cut in the second half. Joining us now is Dino Aquino, the Vice President and Head of Fixed Income at Security Bank. He's here to break down what this latest issuance signals for investors, interest rates, and the country's broader debt strategy. Hello, Dino, and thank you.
Thanks
Dino,
again.
thanks for being here with us. It was jello
Always a pleasure.
just a few
Always
days
a
ago.
pleasure. Yeah.
Okay, Dino, let's talk about market reception, timing, specifically investor appetite. This is the first RTB issuance for the year.
Yeah.
Do you think that it'll be well received?
Definitely. First and foremost, there's a lot of liquidity. There's a 500 billion maturing this August 12.
August 12, and another one.
Old RTB. And another 300
In September.
September. So that's around 800 billion worth of liquidity. So I think it's going to be well received, not only by institutional investors, but also by the
retail
retail
investors
the
as well.
Yeah.
How much of that demand do you think is going to be rollover money versus fresh capital?
If I have to make a educated guess, probably the total amount to be swapped is around 500. I'm thinking half of that will be swapped around 200, 300, and then new money will come in at around 300. So likely they will end up around a little over 500, close to 600 billion in terms of
and usually
volume.
that's a 500 to 600
that's the
usual
usual
RTB
size.
issuance.
Yeah, that's the usual size. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this structure and strategic purpose. The exchange feature. The built-in exchange option in RTB 31 helps lengthen the government's debt maturity profile. How important is that in managing refinancing risks?
It's very important. We have this, we call it the two towers, like Lord of the Rings. The two towers that will be maturing in the next 2 to 3 years. So this issuance is perfect so that they can extend their maturity profile. So they don't have to chase borrowing in the next 2 to 3 years. So the timing is perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And why a 5-year bond now? Why not 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's because of the two towers. So if they borrow 2 or 3-year bonds, they will have 3 towers.
Then they'll have to keep doing more work over again.
They have 3 towers now.
In terms of retail focus, RTBs are meant to attract retail investors. What kind of yield, messaging, or macro backdrop do we need to bring more of them in this time around?
I think 6 is a really magic number. If you
or
recall,
higher.
6 or higher. If you recall during the pandemic, the old RTB that's going to mature this month is actually, the yield is around 3%, the rest than 3% if I'm not mistaken. So that's a big jump from prior RTB issuances. So the 6% level I think is a very sweet spot, especially to retail investors. That's very conservative.
I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
That's
about
your
that.
phone. That's okay. All right. Interesting thing. It's also going to be available via mobile app. Is that going to be a first?
I think it's a first. It's available by a mobile app, and I think a lot of, I think even our helpers are looking at it. They're checking out the RTBs like, sir, what's this RTB? Okay, go invest in that.
Well, you're the right person to ask for that. But how do you think that's going to change the game? The fact that it's going to be available digitally?
I think it's going to change a lot in a big way. Retail will come in. So not only institutions, but retail will come in. So
how much of
really
a jump are you projecting given this digital push?
There's a lot of liquidity in the system right now. So in terms of jump, I think it's going to be probably bigger than the last time. A lot bigger than last time. Probably 10%, 15% bigger than the last time.
Okay. The peso, it's at 58.
Yeah.
How does that change the game? I mean, it's going to affect foreign inflows. And at 58.25, do you think there's more upside momentum to that?
There could be some upside momentum. Let's term the phrase. The BSB has been very dovish as of late.
The Fed has been very hawkish.
Very hawkish in their recent meeting. So if I were to use a Tagalog phrase, since I've been in the market for so long, nakalakihan. So we got used to being so dependent with the Fed.
Yeah, and that's why the peso
Yeah,
is weakened.
that's
because
how the peso is
BSP
weakened.
is
So
dovish while the
a-
Fed is so hawkish.
Yeah, so a lot of participants in the market are not comfortable with the idea that our spread could tighten in terms of interest rate differential. So right, because the BSP governor indicated the possibility of a 25 basis points cut, which is live this month. So that would bring the IRD to 50 because the Fed hasn't cut yet this year. So a lot of people are like, they're not comfortable with the idea that we might go to a 50 basis point spread ahead of the...
That's a big dot to connect in
Yeah.
this space. The interest
Yeah.
rate differential between the U.S. and the Philippines right
Yeah.
now, that's razor thin. With
Yeah.
expectations of a rate cut in August by the
Yeah.
BSP, are you thinking there's going to be another one in the fourth quarter, perhaps?
Our house view is 2 more, but I think Jello emphasized that the Fed has to cut before us. There's a foreign shop actually that indicated that the BSP can afford a 25 basis points interest rate differential with the Fed, which is, for me personally, that's too thin. That's too thin.
Yeah.
That could create a lot of volatility for the peso. But I think 50 is a possibility, and I think we have to get used to the idea that we're in this type of environment already.
In this type of environment. And note, while we're at 58 today, your economist, Jello Tanico, said that his outlook for the peso is at 57
yeah.
for the full year 2025. So
Yeah.
this is a temporary blip.
Yeah,
you
yes. It's a combination of short squeezing. A lot of people are bearish on the dollar. So positioning-wise, a lot of people are...
Overdone?
Overdone, a bit overdone. And of course, there's some month-end demand from corporates also. So there's a lot of buying, usually on month-end. So it's a combination of a lot of things. But primarily, it's the getting used to the tight interest rate differential between the Fed and the
Yeah.
BSP.
About growth
Governor
of 5.6.
Remolona mentioned that the second quarter GDP would likely be around 5.5. So if it closes in onto the low 5 handles, then I think a decoupling is warranted.
Yeah, in relation to that, our debt strategy, our debt has exceeded record levels,
17
exceeded
trillion.
17
Yeah, it's
trillion.
trending. It's trending actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is the RTB issuance just routine refinancing or more of a deliberate shift towards proactive debt management?
It's just refinancing, routine refinancing. Our debt to GDP is still manageable at slightly above 60%, which is, for an emerging market country, is right spot on.
Especially following the pandemic.
Yeah, especially following the pandemic.
Everybody's
Yeah.
debt rose, national
Yeah.
debt rose in response to that. So as long as GDP stays, the GDP to debt ratio stays at about 60%,
Yeah,
we're okay.
that's fine. That's fine. It just sounds alarming, especially to others. So that's why it's been trending all over X and Instagram. So, but in reality, it's not really that much of a big deal.
Okay, all right. Good to hear from you. In terms of inflation, the July print is coming out next week.
Yeah.
What's your forecast? Because that could shape, the BSP's next
next
moves,
move.
which are already priced in.
Priced in.
Okay, but in any case, what are your thoughts on July inflation?
Yeah, our house call is 1.2, but there's a possibility that it could actually be lower. So the risk is on the low end.
On the downside, that's great to
Because
hear.
rice is life. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
rice is life,
The
and the
Sona, he
prices
mentioned
have
the 20
softened.
peso rice
Yeah.
is still on the table. So
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Full year still 1.9%
Yes,
for
yeah.
inflation, still well
Below
below the
the
government's,
government's
2 to
target.
4%
Yeah.
target. So it gives the BSP so much more room.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sauna, Dino. The president sort of focused on infrastructure and growth, but gave little clarity on fiscal consolidation. What are your thoughts on this State of the Nation address? I mean, in your space, in this space, everybody really watches the BSP governor, BSP Governor Eli Remolona. Everybody will dissect each and every single word said.
yeah.
What about the sauna? How does this space, look to that?
I have a fun fact for you. I've been in different dealing rooms for the past 20 years. And I've observed everyone. Because the Sona is around 4 o'clock, 4:30, right? So it's still, we're in the office. So probably just 3 or 4 people watch
Video
the sauna
protocol.
intently. They just listen and then do their thing, trade, listen. So it's not really, the BSP has full autonomy when it comes to politics. So the traders are more engaged when it comes to the governor. For example, the governor speaks. We look at him word for word. It's like our 10-year-old watching our cartoons intently.
Hooked.
Yeah, so we're really hooked when he speaks. But unlike the sauna, it's because of the autonomy that the BSP have over.
Yeah. And that's also because our BSP governor, they speak to the capital markets
Yeah.
directly. And the president was addressing, in fairness, the general public.
The general
right?
public,
So
yeah.
these issues may not be that sort
So
of
market
but
trends-
direction for the capital markets would have also been nice.
Yeah.
What would you have wanted to hear?
Some reforms, probably. Economic reforms. Yeah, probably.
Particularly,
On growth. How could we improve our growth? I saw your segment on Balisacan mentioning that we should shift from consumer-driven economy
we
to
are
something
a
else.
consumer-driven,
Yeah.
import-dependent
Yeah.
economy.
To something
Dino,
else.
what part of that narrative would you like to change within our lifetime? What's realistic?
It's probably infrastructure spending, spending more on infrastructure and improving a lot of things in terms of infrastructure. So, like for example, building a subway. So that I think I've been to other countries that are, so their subway is really, really nice. That's our ASEAN neighbors, right? So those sorts of things that we
I
are.
don't understand.
I'm seriously sorry about this.
Okay, your phone is talking again.
Yeah.
Okay, last thoughts, balancing growth and sustainability. With rising borrowing needs, macro uncertainty, how can the government strike a balance, the right balance between growth spending and long-term debt sustainability?
I think the BSB has been on top of it already by communicating the possibility of further rate cuts. So they're prioritizing growth. So it's obvious. The BSB governor, as early as last June, he mentioned the possibility of an IRD of 50 basis points. He also mentioned the possibility of 2 more rate cuts. So in terms of growth, that's really our primary focus. So I think they're already balancing it as we speak.
And as we wrap up, Dino, can you tell us, describe the first half of 2025 for the fixed income, and tell us how the second half is shaping up? In the first half, we had Trump's Liberation Day uncertainties, so
Fed
much uncertainty.
forecasts.
In this second half, we are coming into more clarity.
Yeah.
Today, August 1st, we have that tariff. I
Yeah.
mean, there's clarity. What are your thoughts on the first half vis-a-vis the second half?
The direction is much clear. Interest rates are really bound to go down or move lower. At what pace or what speed, then that's the question. But in terms of clarity, in terms of interest rate movement, it's really about to go down. Especially with inflation very, very benign. You mentioned the low point is 0.5. So if inflation goes below 1%, that would give the BSP more ample ammunition to really be more dovish in terms of their stance. So the clarity when it comes to the rates movement is really clear.
Yeah. So
It's going
for the
down.
entrepreneurs, the business leaders watching, what
Yeah.
would your advice be to them?
Lock in rates while it's still high.
All right. Thank
Lock
you
in
so
rates.
much, Dino Aquino, the head of fixed income at Security Bank. Okay, we're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are doing this Friday morning. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is trading to the downside, lower by 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index going the other way, up by 0.2%. Shanghai Composite in the green, up by 0.1%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index higher by about 0.25%. Here at home, market sentiment turned sour yesterday as the tariff clock ran out. Philippine stocks and the peso fell Thursday as investors braced for the impact of the 19% U.S. tariff on Philippine exports, which takes effect today. The PSE index dropped 1% to 62.52, while the broader all shares index slipped 1%. All sectors closed in the red, led by the mining and oil counter, down over 3%. Holding firms, financials, industrial, services, and property counters also posted losses. Value turnover reached 7.85 billion pesos, with decliners outnumbering advancers 2-1, reflecting growing caution amid trade and currency headwinds. Pressure is building on multiple fronts, with a stronger dollar, flat U.S. rates, and heightened trade uncertainty clouding the outlook. Now, a quick check on the markets right now. As of 10:31, the main gauge is in the green, higher by 0.3% to 62.69. The broader all shares index in the green, slightly up by 0.1%. As for the sub-indices, we're seeing a bit of a mixed picture. Everything is in the green except for the property counter, which is limiting the market's advance. It's now lower by 0.7%. Volume is at 402 million shares, valued at 877 million pesos. Market breadth is about neck and neck. We've got 61 advancers, 60 decliners, and 44 stocks unchanged. So that advance may just go the other way based on market breadth. Now, let's take a look at the currency markets. The peso weakened further yesterday, closing at 58.32 against the greenback, its lowest level since February. Dollar volume surged to 2.6 billion as markets reacted to the start of a new tariff regime. Today, the peso opened slightly stronger at 58.25 to the dollar from its previous close of 58.32. A new kind of loan is giving TikTok sellers a faster way to grow their business. Designed specifically for online entrepreneurs, it offers quicker funding with fewer hurdles. Sujin Kim has the details.
7 out of every 10 micro, small, and medium enterprises in the Philippines still struggle to get a loan from traditional banks. This remains one of the biggest barriers holding back MSME growth in the country.
They are the backbone of our economy, and yet most of them still can't access the financing they need to grow.
And when capital is out of reach, the effects trickle. Hiring gets delayed, inventory levels are reduced, expansion plans are put on hold, and many sellers are forced to turn down opportunities because there just isn't enough cash flow.
Traditional lending wasn't built with small businesses in mind, much less digital-first entrepreneurs who operate online, create content, and fulfill orders through platforms like TikTok Shop. What many MSMEs encounter instead is a process that feels rigid, feels slow, and very inaccessible.
In response to the rapid rise of online selling, GoTime Bank and TikTok Shop launched the first loan product tailored specifically for TikTok Shop sellers in the Philippines. According to GoTime, sellers can receive funding in as fast as 2 to 3 days. Interest starts at 1.5% per payment cycle, and no collateral is required.
We believe TikTok Shop loans has the potential to unlock these sellers and take them to the next level.
GoTime and TikTok Shop also assure the system is safe.
We are a regulated bank in the Philippines, so everything on this, as part of this product, is fully regulated and compliant with National Privacy Commission regulation as well as BSP. And so that gives assurance to the TikTok sellers that not only is this an exciting product, but both their data and their funds are safe.
And for sellers who avail of the loan, they can choose flexible terms ranging from 3 to 12 months. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Energy Secretary Sharon Garin is under fire for reinstating a coal exemption for a power project owned by Meralco's at Timonan 1 Energy, reigniting debate over the country's commitment to a clean, competitive energy future. The move reverses a prior revocation by the DENR and has drawn sharp criticism from environmental, consumer, and church groups. They warn it could undermine power sector competition, derail clean energy transition targets, and erode confidence in rule-based policy making at a time when the country is trying to attract more green investments. Pete Ilagan, president of consumer advocacy group Nasacor, slammed the decision as non-consultative and said it signals a reversion to coal dependency. Nasacor has since written to Malacanang, urging President Marcos to immediately review the policy and its implications for energy security and consumer welfare. On another front, AGAP party list representative Nicanor Briones has been removed from the Commission on Appointments after a viral video showed him watching a cockfight on his phone during a session. Briones admits to viewing the video but denies that he was gambling. He claims it was sent via Messenger and he opened it out of curiosity. The lawmaker has apologized for the distraction but maintains his conscience is clear. He's challenging the person who took the video to come forward. He says he's ready to face an ethics complaint to clear his name.
Sa totoo lang, malinis ang konsensya ko. Hindi ako sa bungero. Hindi nga ako marunong ng online. Wala akong GCash, walang lahat. Wala akong money transfer, hindi ako marunong. So, hindi ko lang kung sino may pakanan ito. Sana lumabas, magpakilala. Una, humingi siya ng pasensya sa akin. Ako naman, humingi ako ng pasensya dahil ang aking maraming naapektuhan dahil doon sa pagkakasagot ko doon sa Messenger.
The government is beefing up its crackdown on illegal online gambling with a specific target, Isabong. The Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center says it aims to fully eliminate online cockfighting, which has been linked to organized crime, financial fraud, and even human trafficking. CICC Deputy Executive Director Attorney Renato Paraiso warns that Isabong remains a gateway for criminal networks to exploit digital payment systems and launder illicit funds. But Paraiso also cautions against an outright ban on all online gambling platforms, stressing that what's needed is a stronger, more balanced regulatory framework. He's calling on lawmakers, regulators, and tech stakeholders to work together to penalize bad actors without disrupting the broader fintech ecosystem. Now, can the DPWH police itself? Lawmakers say no, insisting that the agency can't be allowed to investigate its own flood control failures. The Makabayan Bloc argues that as the main implementer of flood projects, the DPWH has too much at stake and should not be in charge of reviewing its own work. They're pushing for the Commission on Audit to lead the inquiry instead. Senator Risa Ontiveros agrees, urging lawmakers to use COA's reports in upcoming budget deliberations. She pointed to over 200 billion pesos worth of flagged DPWH projects in 2023 alone, adding that COA has a strong track record in uncovering government waste. A national backlash over water woes is spilling into the Senate. Senator Risa Ontiveros is turning up the heat on Prime Water, the Villar-owned concessionaire under fire for allegedly failing to deliver basic services in multiple communities. Ontiveros has filed a fresh resolution urging a Senate investigation into Prime Water's joint venture agreements with local governments after a growing number of LGUs moved to terminate deals, citing persistent service failures. Despite Prime Water's ties to a politically influential family, Ontiveros says she's confident that the Senate will put public interest first and back the probe as part of wider efforts to hold utilities accountable. On another front, Toyota Motor Philippines Foundation turns 35, and it's not just celebrating milestones, it's laying down new tracks for the future. Under the stewardship of Bilyonaryo Alfred T., the foundation is expanding its mission with a new focus on access, connectivity, and nation building beyond the automotive sector. Our mobility correspondent, G. Baroga, has the details.
At 35, the Toyota Motor Philippines Foundation is shifting into higher gear, introducing a fifth pillar that reflects the evolving needs of the country, Mobility Plus. The new pillar is an addition to its long-standing focus on health, education, environment, and community service. It is part of Bilyonaryo Alfred T's vision to help move not just people, but possibilities.
In synergy with other pillars, it will be instrumental in creating bigger impact through the mobility of people, mobility of things, mobility of information, and mobility of free and creative ideas for many Filipinos.
According to T, the foundation has already invested over 800 million pesos in programs that directly improve the lives of Filipinos, grounded in the belief passed down by Alfred's father, Taipan Dr. George SKT, that business must serve society.
As a social responsibility, the philosophy and caring hands of our late TMP founding chairman, Dr.
Foundation in Japan and the Philippine General Hospital or PGH. The Philippines is the pilot site for the project, which tackles real-world gaps in healthcare access through mobility innovation.
In the Philippines, we recognize that mobility can enhance the availability of transportation for healthcare professionals and then also healthcare accessibility for Philippine public.
Initial efforts include 2 Toyota Coaster units being converted into mobile clinics with full lab services, rolling out in Cavite by November, and 3 Tamaraw UV-based shuttles to provide safe transport for PGH medical workers during the early morning or late night shifts starting September. Toyota also donated mobile clinics in support of the Love for All program of First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, who also graced the celebration.
Bilyonaryo and Toyota Motor Philippines Chairman Alfred T. says strong car sales have enabled them to give back to the Filipino community. Toyota continues to lead the local auto scene, holding nearly half of the total market share. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
We're taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. The White House unveils a new trade policy just hours before the August 1 tariff deadline. The universal tariff rate on imports to the United States will stay at 10%, but only for countries with a trade surplus with the United States, where American exports outweigh imports. For countries where the U.S. runs a trade deficit, the base tariff jumps to 15%. Over a dozen countries face even higher tariffs, either through formal trade frameworks with Washington or via direct notification letters from President Trump, setting rates above the 15% floor. A new trade flashpoint is brewing as U.S. President Donald Trump hikes tariffs on Canadian imports from 25% to 35% effective August 1st. Trump claims that the move is a response to Canada's alleged failure to curb the flow of fentanyl into the United States. Under the new policy, Canadian goods routed through a third country will face an even higher 40% tariff, though products compliant with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement will be exempt. On another front, Donald Trump's attacks on Fed Chair Jerome Powell are raising new questions about central bank independence, just as markets weigh the timing of the next rate cut. The former U.S. president called his decision to appoint Powell a mistake, slamming him for being too late and terrible at his job, a sharp escalation in Trump's long-standing criticism of the Federal Reserve. The Fed kept rates unchanged at its July 30 meeting in a split decision, citing elevated inflation and a strong labor market, but signaling that easing may be on the horizon later on this year. Trump's comments come as he campaigns for a return to the White House as he campaigns with more monetary policy firmly back in the political spotlight.
I put him in, and then Biden extended him, and Biden only extended him because he knew I couldn't stand him, and that turned out to be not a good thing for Biden. Although he did lower interest rates just prior to the election, didn't work out too well for them, but he did lower them pretty substantially just prior to the election. No, he's a political hack, not very good. He's not a smart guy.
Apple blew past Wall Street expectations, powered by a surge in iPhone sales and strong demand across its hardware lineup. The tech giant posted $94 billion in revenue for its fiscal third quarter, beating analyst estimates, with iPhone sales up 13.5% to over $44 billion. CEO Tim Cook said Apple set seasonal records for iPhone, Mac, and Apple Watch upgrades. Apple is also diversifying its supply chain amid ongoing tariff risks, continuing to shift production to India and Vietnam. Despite global headwinds and intense competition, Apple's strong performance sent shares up 2% in after-hours trading. Some good news. 2 young Filipinos are bringing home honors from prestigious international math competitions held in New York. 14-year-old Liam Casey Opulento, a grade 9 student from the Philippine Science High School, won silver at the Copernicus Olympiad, competing against more than 1,500 students from 26 countries. Shiv Francis Theodore Marabe, a 5th grader at Stonyhurst Southville International School in Batangas City, also made the country proud, bagging bronze at the Copernicus Olympiad and silver at the Horizon Math Olympiad held at Rutgers University.
Para sa akin po, ito po yung parang pinakamalaki na nagawa ko sa buhay ko. Ito po yung pinakamalaki accomplishment ko po besides sa nakapasok ko ng Pisay.
Winning the bronze medal, especially in like a hard competition, it makes me feel like very happy and like excited whenever I get it.
So young, so much more to expect from them. Good job, kids. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.